Hello and welcome dear students to this lecture on topic Working of Constituent Assembly and its Ideological Moorings. Let's first begin with a quick look to the objectives of the lecture. The objectives of the lecture are to study the working of the Constituent Assembly of India, to study the procedures and the principles that govern the functioning of the Constituent Assembly, and to study the different ideologies that informed the debates in the Constituent Assembly. Dear students, the Constituent Assembly of India was a body vested with the power to draft the Constitution for independent India. The assignment was one that would take them almost 3 years and make them participants in an extraordinary experiment in human history. Indians would at last govern themselves and give future Indians the power to do so. But it also marked a self-proclaimed juncture between the past and the future. And the movement brought with it not simply ideas and enthusiasm, but also apprehensions and responsibilities. Dear students, one of the fundamental sources that guided the working of Constituent Assembly were the Objectives Resolution moved by India's first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and adopted by Constituent Assembly on 22nd January 1947. Objectives Resolution outlined the goals and philosophy of the new state that would form the basis of its future constitution and laws. The Objectives Resolution goes like, first, this Constituent Assembly declares its firm and solemn resolve to proclaim India as an independent, sovereign republic and to draw up for her future governance a constitution. Second, India shall be a union of territories comprising erstwhile British India provinces, territories and Indian states as princely states, as well as territories outside British India and Indian states as are willing to be constituted in the independent sovereign Indian Union. Third, all powers and authority of independent sovereign India and its constituent parts and organs of government would be derived from the people of India. Fourth, all people of India shall be guaranteed and secured justice, social, economic and political, equality of status and opportunity, equality before law, freedom of thought, expression, belief, faith, worship, vocation, association and action, subject to law and public morality. Fifth, adequate safeguards would be provided to minorities, backward sections and tribal areas and depressed and other backward classes also. Sixth, the territorial integrity of the Republic and its sovereign rights on land, sea and air shall be maintained according to justice and law of the civilized nations. Similarly, seventh, the ancient land would make its full and willing contribution to the promotion of world peace and the welfare of mankind. The objective resolutions laid down the mandate of the Constituent Assembly, and the mandate was well grounded and reflected the ideals, values and promises and the shared heritage of the freedom movement. It took Constituent Assembly 2 years and 11 months to draft a constitution and give shape to its mandate. How Constituent Assembly functioned, what was the procedure it adopted to govern and regulate its functioning. In order to bring inclusivity in its working, the Constituent Assembly adopted the procedure of committees to divide its work and assigned a specific subject dealing with different provisions of the Constitution. Now, some of the major committees of the Constituent Assembly were as Rules Committee. It had 16 members and was chaired by Rajendra Prasad. Steering Committee having 12 members and was chaired by Rajendra Prasad again. States Committee, it had 6 members and Jawaharlal Nehru was the chairman of this committee. It was appointed to negotiate with the states, negotiating committee. Advisory Committee, Vallabhbhai Patel was the chairman of this committee and it had 64 members. Fundamental Rights Subcommittee of the Advisory Committee, chaired by J.B. Kripalani, and it had 12 members. Similarly, Minorities Subcommittee of the Advisory Committee, H.C. Mukherjee was its chairman and it had 29 members. Union Powers Committee, chaired by Jawaharlal Nehru, it had 16 members. Union Constitution Committee, it was chaired by Jawaharlal Nehru again, and this committee had 15 members. Similarly, Provincial Constitution Committee, Vallabhbhai Patel was the chairman of this committee and it had almost 24 members. The Drafting Committee, it was headed by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and it had 7 members. Dear students, the composition of these committees also reflected the diversity in leadership within the Constituent Assembly. Each committee's composition reflected a fusion of political, technocratic leadership. On the one hand were the leaders of the Congress and other parties with a vast political experience and their participation in the freedom movement, and on the other hand were eminent legal luminaries and civil servants. Each committee drafted a report on the subject assigned to it, and after general discussion, then the drafting committee was formed by the Constituent Assembly headed by B.R. Ambedkar on 29 August 1947. The committee prepared the draft Constitution of India, which was published in February 1948. In November 1948, the Constituent Assembly had a threadbare discussion of the draft constitution clause by clause. The final draft, writes Madhav Khosla, was grand. Nearly 2,500 amendments were moved to produce the Constitution of India. Dear students, let's now have a look to the sessions of the Constituent Assembly. The first session was held from 9 to 23rd December 1946. Second session was held from 20th to 25th January 1947. Third session from 28th April to 2nd May 1947. Similarly, fourth session from 14th to 31st July 1947. Fifth session from 14th to 30th August 1947. Sixth from 27th January 1948. Seventh session from 4th November 1948 to 8th January 1949. Similarly, 8th session was held from 16th May to 16th June 1949. 9th session was held from 30th July to 18th September 1949. 10th session was held from 6th to 17th October 1949 and 11th session happened from 14th to 26th November 1949. In its 11th meeting, the Constituent Assembly adopted the Constitution of India. The members again assembled on 24th January 1950 and appended their signatures to the Constitution drafted and approved by them. On 26th January 1950, the Constitution of India came into effect and India became a constitutional republic. The day is every year celebrated as Republic Day. The choosing of 26th January as Republic Day has its own historical significance in the history of modern India. It was in 1929 in Lahore session of the Indian National Congress, when Jawaharlal Nehru was its president, that the Indian National Congress demanded Purna Swaraj or complete self-rule for India and not the dominion status. 26 January 1930 was set the date for Purna Swaraj. This day was then celebrated as Purna Swaraj Day for the next 17 years till India became independent in 1947. Dear students, let's now have a look to how the Constituent Assembly of India worked. As discussed earlier, it took Constituent Assembly 2 years and 11 months to frame and enact the Constitution of India. What were the basic principles that governed the working of the Constituent Assembly? How decisions were taken and how diverse ideologies were harmonized and accommodated amidst diversity are some of the most important questions that we will discuss. Granville Austin writes, and I quote, "The Constitution has been accepted as the character of the Indian unity. Within its limits are held the negotiations over the working of the federal system, the realignment of state boundaries on linguistic lines was done within the definition of Indian nationalism. The Constitution has established the accepted norms of national behavior. This was made possible by Constituent Assembly's faith in the principles of consensus and accommodation. Austin calls these as India's original contribution in the making of the Constitution. These two cardinal principles served the purpose of Constituent Assembly very well. Given the diverse background of the members and the unanimity was preferred over majority rule, as it is preferred way of taking decisions to decide political conflicts in which human emotions are very deeply involved. The members of the Constituent Assembly adhered to this principle in the hope that Constitution framed by consensus would be more effective and durable. The Assembly debates were informed by the consensus as an effective way of reaching lasting agreements. Jawaharlal Nehru had also appealed to the members of the Constituent Assembly that Constitution should be framed in proper time and with as great respect for unanimity as possible. So, avoiding majoritarianism in the decision making inside the Constituent Assembly was a no mean achieved. The principle of consensus was achieved through the principle of accommodation. This formed the second core value that informed the working of the Constituent Assembly of India. Accommodation, writes Granville Austin, is the ability to reconcile, harmonize, and to make work without changing their content, apparently incompatible concepts. Discussion and debate was preferred to decide applying the principle of accommodation to procedural technique. This is not to say that everything was decided by consensus. The Constituent Assembly did apply voting as a method to decide the issue. However, on important issues or decisions, it was agreed would be taken by consensus. According to Austin, the federal and unitary character of the Indian Constitution is an example of accommodation. So was India's decision to join Commonwealth. Decision on Panchayat Raj were all resolved through the principle of accommodation. However, both these principles were greatly supplemented by the consensus already arrived at during the freedom movement. The national ideas, goals were well articulated by the leadership of the people of India. The Constituent Assembly was a forum for the representatives to concretize the values, aspirations, hopes that people had from the new system against the exploitative and undemocratic colonial system. Objectives resolutions were a testimony to all this. These resolutions outline the mandate as well as the aspiration that Constituent Assembly finally incorporated in the Constitution of India. Now, dear students, let's discuss the ideological moorings of the Constituent Assembly of India. Dear students, the Constitution of India, within which India governs itself and according to which politics is operated, was framed and approved by the Constituent Assembly, as we discussed, that comprised the representatives belonging to different ideologies. The freedom movement was a combination of different ideologies. There were modernists, Western liberals, communists, socialists. There were votaries of Orthodox Hindu who advocated Ram Rajya as the ideal model for the independent India. It was amidst these competing narratives that India's constitution was given the shape. All these narratives were blended and modified to the Indian conditions. This was beautifully articulated by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the chairman of the drafting committee, when he said, "One likes to ask whether there can be anything new in the constitution framed at this hour in the history of the world. The only new thing, if there can be any, in a constitution framed so late in the day are the variations made to remove the failures and accommodate it to the needs of the country." Dear students, the identity, political philosophy of the Indian Constitution is reflected in the preamble to the Constitution of India. The preamble of the Constitution of India reads as, "We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and opportunity." The subsequent provisions elaborates the preamble. The blend of the liberal and socialist traditions are well reflected in the part 3rd of the Constitution, dealing with the fundamental rights of the citizens. The part 4th is a fusion of socio-economic democracy with political democracy. The former prohibits the state from violating the basic and fundamental rights of the individuals except on reasonable grounds, and later are the constitutional directives to the state to take measures for the uplifting of poorer and vulnerable sections of the society. The core political values of liberalism, like constitutionalism and consent, are there as the Constitution has prescribed the norms which govern our politics, and government is formed with the people's consent, expressed through universal adult franchise. The trust is renewed after every 5 years. The government is not a minimal government but a welfare state and has the power to intervention to ensure social justice and welfare. There are rights of the individual, there are group rights as well. The Constitution gives India a secular identity. The Indian state has no official religion. The state does not discriminate between different religions and shows equal respect to all. This is in line with India's multicultural, multilingual and multi-religious character. However, state can legitimately intervene in religion if religion is used to promote inequality, injustice and intra-religious dominations, etc. This is how Indian version of secularism is different from what it means in the West. Similarly, Indian version of socialism is not class war but has to be advanced by following the democratic path. It is a tribute to the far sight of the makers of the Constitution of India who reconciled, harmonized the different ideologies in the making of the Constitution. Dear students, in conclusion, we can say that the Constituent Assembly gave to the people of India an effective and durable constitution that has stood the test of time. It has been amended more than 100 times, but never thought to have become irrelevant. This is a sign of sheer wisdom of the members of Constituent Assembly. This was made possible by the inclusive decision making amidst the competing narratives. As rightly observed by Madhav Khosla, and I quote, "History has seen few constituent assemblies that can claim to have been so accommodative, where participants disagreed over even premises but still engaged in an enterprise that could carry them towards a consensus." Unquote. It is this quality that gives every citizen of India to go along with the provisions of the Constitution. It has something for everyone. It is the democracy envisioned by the makers of the Constitution, writes Javed Alam, that has become internalized to the common people's consciousness. It is a model of society approved by the people. It has not solved the problems of the poor, but it has given them a space to fight for their dignity, rights and entitlements. It enables the underprivileged to transcend their social locations. It gives them a sense of power they never experienced in social life. With these words, dear students, I conclude this lecture. Hope you find it useful. Goodbye and God bless you.